The fluorescent lights of Terminal 3 at Chicago O'Hare hummed overhead as Alex Rivera stood in the boarding line with his 8-year-old daughter, Mia. She clutched a small stuffed airplane in one hand and his sleeve in the other. The flight to Seattle was delayed 2 hours, but Alex didn't mind. He had learned patience the hard way. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a long illness. Since then, it had been just the two of them. Alex worked as a senior avionics technician at a quiet Midwest facility that most people had never heard of. The pay was decent, but not enough for business class. So Coach it was. He had saved for months to take Mia to see her grandparents and attend a special aviation camp for kids near Seattle. She dreamed of flying one day. He wanted her to believe it was possible. "Dad, can we get window seats?" Mia asked, her voice small but hopeful. "We'll try, kiddo," Alex replied, smiling down at her. His faded blue jacket and worn backpack made him look like any other tired father traveling on a budget. They boarded near the end of the line. The flight attendant gave them a sympathetic nod as she scanned their boarding passes. Row 28, seats C and D, middle and aisle. Not ideal, but they were together. As Alex helped Mia settle in, a well-dressed man in his 40s in the row behind them sighed loudly. "Great. Coach again," the man muttered to his wife. "At least we're not stuck next to someone who belongs back here permanently." His wife chuckled. A few seats away, a woman in a designer tracksuit rolled her eyes when Alex accidentally bumped her armrest while stowing their bag. "Some people just don't know their place," she said loud enough for half the cabin to hear. Alex ignored it. He had heard worse. He fastened Mia's seatbelt and pulled out her sketchbook so she could draw airplanes during takeoff. The mockery didn't stop once they were airborne. A flight attendant offered complimentary drinks. When Alex politely asked for water for Mia and coffee for himself, the man behind him leaned forward. "Coach passengers taking up space and time. Typical." His wife joined in. "Look at him. Single dad vibe. Probably lives off government checks and complains about everything." A younger guy across the aisle, wearing a flashy watch, laughed. "Stay in, Coach, buddy. You're just trash compared to people who actually contribute." Mia looked up at her father, confused. Alex placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, sweetheart. Some people talk when they're uncomfortable on long flights." But the comments kept coming, quiet enough not to get them removed, loud enough to sting. They assumed he was unemployed, uneducated, or simply worthless. Alex kept his face calm. He had learned long ago that explaining himself to strangers rarely changed minds. He focused on Mia, helping her draw the clouds outside the window and telling her stories about the history of flight. Inside, though, the words landed. He was exhausted from working double shifts, from being both parents, from wondering if he was doing enough. But giving up wasn't an option. Not for Mia. The flight continued for hours. Turbulence made Mia nervous, and Alex distracted her with quiet games. The cabin lights dimmed for the overnight portion. Most passengers slept. Alex stayed awake, watching over his daughter. As the plane began its descent into Seattle, the captain's voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank our military personnel on board today. We also want to recognize a very special passenger traveling with us." Alex assumed it was someone in uniform. He was wrong. "Mr. Alex Rivera," the captain continued, "on behalf of everyone at Boeing and the United States Air Force, thank you for your contributions. Your work made today's flight and many others safer." A ripple of confusion spread through the cabin. The man behind Alex stopped mid-sip. The woman in the designer tracksuit turned around, frowning. The plane landed smoothly. As passengers stood to collect their bags, Alex remained seated, helping Mia put on her jacket. He hoped the announcement would fade quickly. It didn't. At the gate, 2 men in Air Force flight suits waited. Their patches showed they flew F-22 Raptors. Sharp, professional, and clearly respected. When Alex and Mia stepped into the jet bridge, the pilot snapped to attention. "Mr. Rivera, sir," the lead pilot said, saluting crisply. "It's an honor." The second pilot saluted as well. "Your team's upgrades to the sensor fusion software saved our squadron more than once during training exercises last year. The stealth algorithms you helped refine? Game changers." Passengers streaming past froze. Phones came out. The same man who had called Alex trash stood stunned a few feet away, his face pale. Alex returned the salute modestly. "Just doing my job, captains. These young ones are the real heroes." Mia looked up at her father with wide eyes. "Dad, you know fighter pilots?" One of the pilots knelt to her level. "Your dad is one of the best avionics minds we work with. He doesn't wear a uniform, but he keeps us flying safe. We've been waiting to meet him in person." Word spread quickly through the terminal. Airport staff appeared, offering assistance. A senior Boeing executive, who happened to be on the same flight, approached, apologizing quietly for not recognizing him earlier. The loud passengers from the plane had gathered at a distance, watching in silence. The designer tracksuit woman looked mortified. The man with the flashy watch stared at the floor. Alex didn't gloat. He simply shook the pilot's hands, thanked them for their service, and led Mia toward baggage claim. One of the pilots insisted on carrying their bags. As they walked through the terminal, the cinematic weight of the moment settled in. Ordinary travelers whispered. A few clapped. Mia held her father's hand tighter than ever. Later that evening, in a quiet hotel room near her grandparents' house, Mia sat on the bed drawing again, this time a picture of her dad standing beside an F-22. "Dad," she said softly, "why didn't you tell those people on the plane what you do?" Alex sat beside her, brushing hair from her face. "Because what I do isn't about proving something to strangers, Mia. It's about doing good work so people like those pilots can protect our skies. And so you can chase your dreams without worrying." He paused, thinking back to the long nights in the lab, the classified briefings, the satisfaction of solving problems that kept aircraft invisible and their systems reliable. His role was behind the scenes, quiet, technical, essential. No glory, no spotlight. Just results. The next morning, the story had already begun to spread locally. A respectful article appeared on a Seattle aviation blog. Single fathers' quiet contributions recognized by elite fighter pilots. No sensationalism. Just facts. Alex spent the week with Mia at the aviation camp. She flew a simulator for the first time. Her eyes lit up when instructors mentioned sensor systems, technology her father had helped improve. The other children's parents treated Alex with quiet respect once they learned the story. On the final day, the two F-22 pilots returned. They gave Mia a junior aviator patch and let her sit in a flight simulator designed for education. Alex watched from the side, arms crossed, a small smile on his face. One pilot approached him. "You know, sir, a lot of us owe our confidence in the cockpit to people like you. The ones who stay out of the headlines but make the difference." Alex nodded. "Just glad it helps." As their trip came to an end, Alex and Mia boarded their return flight. This time, the airline had quietly upgraded them to business class. No one said a word about it. The same passengers from the first flight weren't on this one, but if they had been, the scene would have been very different. On the way home, Mia fell asleep against a shoulder. Alex looked out the window at the clouds far below. Life had taught him that dignity wasn't given by seat numbers or loud opinions. It was earned through quiet dedication, through showing up every day for the people who mattered most. Back in Chicago, as they collected their bags, a young airman recognized Alex and offered a respectful nod. Alex returned it with the same humility he always carried. Years later, Mia would tell the story to her own children, not as a tale of revenge or public humiliation, but as a lesson in character. About a father who never raised his voice when mocked, who kept his focus on what truly mattered, and whose real worth was quietly acknowledged by those who flew at the edge of the sky. The world is full of people quick to judge the man in coach. But sometimes, the man in coach is the reason the jets above can fly with confidence. And when the F-22 pilots salute, the noise of the crowd falls silent.